we're here again, and this time we're going to be talking about the cycle of change. And for those of you playing along at home, we have chapter 6. And looking at a circle, beginning with the concept of how do you feel, because change always hits you in the gut. Now, sometimes that will be instantaneous, like we talked about earlier, and again, there could be some grief associated with this entire cycle, and it could be long or short. But the goal here is how to get to some kind of result. What happens when you get to that result? That result can be positive, or it can be not positive.
Right.
What questions do you have about this?
Well, first let me say, if you go to gettingtowhy.com, people watching the video can download this diagram, the cycle of change, for free. We made it available because if you get the ebook, it's a little bit hard to see on the screen. So you can download that, you can print that off for free. So if you're following along, please do that. Gettingtowhy.com, you'll see the page for downloading the workbook, and it's on that page. So let's go through the cycle. People will notice that it's never ending. It's a circle. You can begin pretty much anywhere on the cycle of change.
And another thing, when you get to the workbook in the back, you're going to apply the cycle of change to all 7 areas of your life. So this sits on top of everything. So it becomes a type of diagnostic tool as well. Beginning, I mentioned earlier that feelings is where you start, and we'll just keep it really simple again. This is simple, that there are 4 basic feelings. There's mad, sad, glad, and hurt, and you can use your own words for each of those. Glad might be happy or ecstatic or whatever it may be, but those are the 4 basics. And that when you feel sad or angry, okay, that's going to impact the next area of the change, because the next area of the change is your belief system. Okay, that's where your moral and ethical components are formulated. They begin to bubble up in terms of ultimately your behavior, but let's just keep it in the belief system. And beliefs are a thought process. This is what I believe in. And so once the feelings are identified, if it's a good feeling, it impacts your belief in a positive way. So you believe this works, I like what's going on here. It's not immoral, unethical, it is something that I can live with. You move to the next section, which is your faith. Now, faith is an action component. We are faithful to something. And what we're faithful to is our belief system. Now, we get stalled out here because from the time you're a kid, parents or well-intentioned adults will say you better watch your behavior, you better watch your attitude. What they should be saying is you better watch your belief. What do you believe in and what's going on? Because these are primordial components to attitude and behavior. Okay, so the belief system drives the faith. So when people would come to me for counseling or therapy, and they would say, I just don't believe I could do such a thing, and they'd already done it. And I said, well, yes, you do. And a simple one would be, I didn't believe I would ever be unfaithful to my spouse. And I said, well, yes, you do. No, I wouldn't. Yes, you do.
Because they'd already done it.
Because you did it. And so what happened is that you momentarily revisited your belief system and made it okay for this behavior. Okay, so you were faithful. You're only faithful to what you believe in. Okay? Even in the world of motivation, which is later, for example, a terrorist will make you feel like if you don't do this, you're going to die.
Right.
That's a belief modification. So that I believe I'm going to die, so I'm going to be faithful, I'm going to take action on doing whatever the terrorist wants.
Right.
Now, I'll talk about this in a later chapter, but the largest terrorist organization in the world are parents. And then the second largest is children, because they're learning to become parent terrorists. But that's for later.
So in other words, I mean, when we look at kids and their beliefs, people learn what you teach them. That's something you say a lot. And you have these foundational time in life in which the belief system, the world's a good place, it's a safe place, or it's a not a safe place, it's a bad place, it's a tough place.
And how much control do you have it? Because we talked about change earlier in terms of how much control do I have over the change in these elements.
Right.
Okay, so just as an encouragement, periodically take a look at what you believe in. And even make a list of things. That would be kind of an interesting exercise, to make a list of things you believe in. Hopefully, it might include friends. And let's take a look at your job or your career. Do you believe that this is something you can do for the next 20, 30 years? Once you establish a good foundation of your beliefs, and that good foundation could be a negative foundation. Because remember, it's what you believe in at that point.
Right.
You'll be faithful to that. So faith is an action. So you're going to take action on that. You're going to be moving forward with that, and then faith then drives attitude. Attitude is another thought process again. So you're going from feeling to thinking to action and back to thinking again. So attitude, an example of that is a ship. I was aboard ship once in a while when I was in the Navy. Most of the time I was on land. And one day the captain asked the quartermaster, what's the attitude of the ship? What he was asking is, what direction are we going, and are we leaning left or right, which is port or starboard?
Right.
And the quartermaster said, well, today it's a little surly. Wasn't exactly what the captain was asking for. So finally the captain says, no, what is the attitude of the ship? And he said, well, we're at 290 degrees, and we're at a 5-degree port list, which means we're leaning to the left from polar north at a 5 degrees, and we're going west. So if you want to continue doing that, if you want to continue going west, if west is the right direction, then you have to modify the power to the twin screws in the back.
Right.
Because if everything stays even, you're going to go in a nice long left-hand turn. Not exactly what you're looking for.
Right.
Or you do something with the ballast of the ship to bring it back to true north.
Right.
So you're not listing and you can keep on going. Life is the same way, is that if you watch children are really great at telling you what their attitude is. Is that when you ask them to do something or try something different, they'll turn almost away from it, almost to the point where they're going sideways. And so they're just really uncomfortable because, again, it's impacting their belief system. I believe I'm going to get hurt. I believe you're lying to me. If something good happens, the next time that event comes up, the child is here.
Right.
They're more willing attitudinally to take action, which is a behavior. That's the next part of the cycle, to take action on that because they had a good experience with that. Let's say that experience was not good. Next thing you know, that kid's almost run backwards in terms of literally turning away from the action that you're asking them to do.
Right.
So as a manager, as a leader, as a parent, as a friend, when you see the behavior of someone who's kind of crabbing, walking sideways toward the event, stop and say, what's happening here? Because they've given you a body action that tells you something that their belief system or maybe their feeling go all the way back down to the very beginning of the cycle.
Right.
Just simply ask them, how do you feel about this new thing that you're going to happen? And they'll talk to feelings. Instead of asking, what do you think about this? That's higher up in the cycle. Start at the very beginning. Well, how do you feel about this exercise? And that once we establish that, okay, do you believe this is a good idea?
Right.
You literally take them on the cycle. You can use it. I'm not trying to turn everybody into a therapist, but this is fairly simple.
And it's highly effective, and you're going to where the foundation of that ultimate behavior is going to be.
What results are you looking for?
Right.
Okay. Because if you go through the cycle in a negative fashion, you're going to get results, but they're not quite what you're looking for.
A little bit random.
And it will also, the result will be negative, which will immediately impact your feelings. And you start through the cycle again, only this time your belief system has been modified. Your attitude, your faithfulness to that will be less or different. you see what begins to happen, because the final stage, well, the final stage is result, but we're looking now at behavior, which is the action. So we've got feelings, we've got thinking, we've got action, we've got thinking. Now we've got back to behavior that's going to take us hopefully to the result we're looking for.
Right.
It's all about change, and this is a way of kind of helping people have a tool to deal with that change so that you can be self-diagnostic. How do I feel about where I am at this particular point? Take a moment. We both do meditation, and just meditate for a while in terms of, how am I feeling about this? Sometimes your gut will tell you, I'm okay, or the gut will say, you're not okay. This is kind of turning upside down.
Right.
It could be just because it is more than just a grief event,
Right.
or it's deeper into the grief event. So you're into denial, and now you're feeling kind of bad about the whole situation. But bottom line is, when you get to the result that you want, the element of it's time to celebrate.
Right.
And I have shared this with homes, I've shared this with businesses and corporations, is that historically there is just a major lack of celebration in your cultures and in your environment. Take some time to celebrate, for goodness sakes. Is that, I know people who've grown up into the yes but environment. Yes, that was good, but you could have done it a little bit better. That was wonderful, but you could have done this and you could have done that. And so there's no celebration there. It's a yes but event.
I found in Japanese culture, I've worked more for Japanese companies than American companies, and in Japan there tends to be more of a celebration.
Yeah.
For example, on the company's 50th anniversary, one company I went to, the company sent us all to Australia with about $500 worth of spending money apiece as a gift.
It's about a day and a half in Australia. That's great, though. Wow.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that was kind of the difference in culture. I noticed one thing.
And it's not nearly the flight from America to Australia as it is from Japan to Australia.
No, it's the same time zone. So we actually, they said,
assume you're there.
They said, hey, we'll sleep on the plane and start fresh in the morning. So
good luck.
Yeah. So one thing that came to mind, we were talking about in the previous videos, let's say you do have a big death in the family, something that really impacts your feelings. You see cases where people's belief systems can change overnight because of that kind of change.
Instantly, right. And again, the death could be real or symbolic. Okay, the death of a girlfriend or a relationship that broke up. We've all been through this. If I ask 10,000 people, how many of you married your first love? You might have 3 hands go up. Okay, the rest of us are normal. We didn't marry our first love. And that, do you remember that first love's name? Absolutely. Do you remember how painful it was? You walked around on your knees for a while because you just felt terrible.
Right.
I know that I used to drive by my first love's house periodically, and I knew she would be at a particular dance. It was in high school, and I would. You call it stalking today.
Yeah.
I just call it, being in love. And
back in the ancient days, it was okay.
Yeah. Rode my dinosaur and everything was cool. My point being is that I remember how I felt, and I can see clearly my behavior. I don't hurt anymore.
Right.
I've gone on. She's gone on. We've gone on, and but there are devastating moments. There's a wonderful phrase that we've all heard: time heals. You got to give something time. If you're not able to be healed or have a healing experience over a period of time, then you probably need some counseling.
Right.
Because you're not letting go of that, and you're blaming or either the other event or other person or yourself that I must be worth less or unlovable.
You're in those stages of grief. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross could be in depression. You could still be stuck in anger, something like that, right?
And you start evaluating yourself differently. So, be
which
nice to
we will
yourself.
see in the wellness cycle.
Be nice to yourself because you may be the only person that is.
We hope not, but okay, let's take a look at the workbook. And
Back in the back.
it's back here. Here we have chapter 6 change, and again, the workbook can be downloaded for free at gettingtowhy.com. So you can see what we're talking about. We're not going to do any of that fancy editing so you can see things on the screen. But we have a chart that's similar to the one you filled out in Chapter 4, 7 Areas of Life. This time you'll be assessing the level of change in your life for the past 6 months. And you said that doesn't have to be exact. It could be 6 months to 2 years.
Up to 2 years, right.
Okay. We'll have that changed in the second edition. But
go ahead and write that in.
please score your current level of change in each area by putting a check mark in the appropriate box. And we have the scale here. 5 is maximal change for the better. Neutral, can't tell, is 0. And then -5 is maximal change for the worse.
Right.
So
the whole spectrum.
yeah. So this is a really good way to assess.
You start charting yourself
what's
out
been
and
going
say,
on in your life.
Where am I? And which area of my life has influenced? Now you can't get away from an area of life. It's
part of your life.
All of here.
Yeah.
Think of it like an orange that you take out a slice and it's one area of life, you put it back in. Each one impacts the other. So if you see what you're feeling, your belief, your attitude, whatever it may be, in each of these particular areas, it becomes a visual aid for you to know, I need to work on that, and allow other areas of your life to help in the healing process as well, because it's extremely rare that you're going to have all areas of your life in the negative.
It's
pretty rare.
It's pretty hard to do.
Yeah, I've seen it, but it's rare.
Okay. And we have some questions. After you fill out that chart, we have some questions for you to answer, which are, how has the level of change in my life over the past 6 months affected my overall level of happiness and satisfaction?
Yeah, where am I on the chart of satisfaction, dissatisfaction, pain, and pleasure, and pinpoint where you are in that particular area for each area.
Right.
Okay. Now, there's actually 8. There is one of those charts for each area of your life, all 7, but then you have a master list as well. In terms of where am I with this? How much of my life is upper right-hand corner?
Right. Okay. How has change, positive or negative, been a source of grief in my life? How have I dealt with this grief?
Right. I think we've covered most of that. Is that this chapter in the book helped us to identify that grief is okay. Grief it is natural. It can be healthy. It can move you to acceptance. Don't be afraid of it. And there are times when you are the cause of grief, not only to others but to yourself.
Right.
And I mentioned a while ago about the yes but. I know people who, once they've been conditioned by well-intentioned adults or parents or whatever, to be trying to work up to your best. Yes, you did, but you could have done better. The purpose of that is to help that child to improve on their behavior and their performance. What happens is that person starts looking for outside reinforcement for approval, because they can't say I did well because they have so much yes but in their life.
From the past.
So they start manipulating people and events to get them to say, oh, that's really one. You did a really good job. Really? You think so? Thank you.
Okay.
So they finally accept themselves because of an external event. It's not a healthy place to be.
Right. Okay, and finally, how skillfully have I handled change over the past 6 months? What, if anything, can I do differently over the next 6 months?
Well, now we're into goal setting. So that taking those areas that we've identified and charted, and then go to a goal sheet, which is in the book, and beginning to identify which area of my life am I going to, and what are the benefits,
which is on the goal sheet, right?
Of this change, and what are some of the hurdles? Because there's going to be hurdles.
Right.
What is your response in anticipation of those hurdles, if and when you get there? I have a plan to go around them or through them or over them or whatever it's going to be. Okay. I think we've covered this chapter.
I think we have, and I think viewers can get an understanding of how complete a guide getting to why is and taking a look at your life.
Everything you need to know.
It's A practical guide to finding your highest purpose. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to JB's channel and like the video. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you in the Chapter 7 video.
Thanks for being here.